Okay, everybody, welcome to yet another episode of what I have affectionately started calling it the Scrubcast. My name is Solaris, Quixote, some people call me Solaris X. I am a scrub. I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time when I play Dota. I just kind of run in there and die. I'm pretty bad, but I do watch a lot of professional Dota. I do enjoy the game, and I do want to get better at the game. So what I've been doing is what I'm calling the Scrubcast is I've been following professional games, been following particular heroes played by some particularly good player, and trying to find out what it is that that player does with that hero throughout the game that makes that player so successful with that hero, that makes the hero successful in the game. I have found a number of different heroes I thought were pretty interesting. I've done one of Venomancer, Disruptor, and one of Lion, like for example, Pili Dai's Lion. It's actually surprising to find out that some of these professional players, quite honestly, they're not doing anything special. You know, they're not doing anything that is too complicated or too hard or something that any old player like myself couldn't learn. So my goal from this is to learn from these professional players, see if I can emulate them and find out what they're doing. Now, of course, we're only going to get one game perspective on a particular hero, and I may come back and revisit some of these heroes. But the Scrubcast is designed to, over time, build my knowledge. I'd like to be a better player, and maybe someday we'll see about casting games if I can get some good practice and get better at it. But right now, I'm just trying to learn about the heroes, learn about items and how they affect certain heroes. And see what they do. So this game is from Epicenter, which has just happened. This is Polarity versus Polarity Dota 2, I guess is what their name is, versus Power Rangers. And as you can see here, we have an interesting lineup. On the, I guess this is the Dire side, we have Enchantress, Beastmaster, Lena, Weaver, and a Shadow Demon. And I assure you, that Shadow Demon was the last pick, as you can see in the line here. Up against an Nature's Prophet, Death Prophet, Crystal Maiden, Ursa, and Abaddon. A pretty nasty lineup there. Fantastic team fight, really good split push possibilities, gank possibilities, good Roshan possibilities. And then Power Rangers pull the Shadow Demon out of thin air, and I was just going through the games and saw there was a Shadow Demon as part of one of the replays, and I was very interested, and I had not seen this before. And it turns out they win with the setup they have here. So Polarity is not a bad team at all. And so I want to follow this J4, who I believe is the captain of the Power Rangers team. And he's, by the way, you might not know him, but he's actually not bad, not a bad player at all, certainly much better than I am. My understanding is he has done decently in the recent past. He did decently okay at Epicenter. They're not a top-tier team for sure, but he was on some pretty good teams before. He did win a couple of first place. He does have a couple first place placements in some tournaments and a well play international invitational #1, I guess. He won a small prize pool. Anyway, but the guy knows what he's talking about. He's the captain, so let's follow him and see what happens. This is a relatively short game. It's only 39 minutes, so we'll go straight to the action and see what starts, how it starts. Okay, so as soon as we get in, I see that I'm already behind. He goes ahead and he starts off with a Smoke, 4 Tangos, a Clarity, Boots of Speed, and Observer Ward. And by the way, all I do is follow him through the entire match. I'll go click on other people just to see what's going on, just to see kind of how the game is developing. But for the most part, I want to see what his perspective is like. What is he doing that is making his hero and the rest of his team successful? And since this is a Shadow Demon, you rarely see a Shadow Demon. This is a real delight. So he starts off with the Smoke. He passes the Smoke off to somebody else, apparently. I'm not sure why he did that. He has a Boots of Speed. Quite a bit of money spent here on the initial purchases. He has a ward. He's already given away one of his Tangos. And they're setting up for a nice team kill here on bottom. He's letting the Beastmaster and Lena go first. He's sitting behind. The question is he going to use his Disruption? And just to go through the abilities, you know, Disruption is this ability that banishes the target from the battlefield for a certain period of time, and once the target comes back, there's 2 illusions that spawn of the target, so that can be used defensively or offensively. You can disrupt yourself, disrupt somebody else, and you get these illusions that come out of it. And the illusions, the damage, there's only 2.5-second duration, so it's kind of like an Astral Imprisonment from an OD. But you combine this with a couple other abilities, like a Soul Catcher, which curses an enemy, takes increased damage, and this is a huge damage bonus because all allies can do additional damage to that hero. So the bonus damage starts off at 20, goes up to 30. I doubt he'll level that very, very early on. He wants to. It's not a tremendous bonus early on, but it's a significant duration. 12 seconds for getting 20 to 50% bonus damage is great. Shadow Poison, if you're interested in being a Shadow Demon player, Shadow Poison has the potential to dominate the lane. What it does is it casts this kind of cloud of poison over the enemy, and over time that poison stacks up as a maximum of 5 stacks. These terms of damage, you can actually put more than 5 stacks on somebody, but only 5 stacks will damage. This additional, you can basically put 5 stacks and just hit your release button on the poison, and it will do a significant amount of damage. And then there's a Demonic Purge, which removes all buffs, slows the target, and does actually quite a bit of damage there, 200, 300, 400, and it's usually used to totally, you know, for example, get rid of an Ursa buff. So you can see Ursa's got this fantastic Enrage ability. Well, it turns out Shadow Demon's going to be able to counter Ursa pretty well with this Demonic Purge. So the question early on for me is, what exactly does he do early on? I'm guessing he's going to go ahead and he is going to level up his Q, the Disruption.
Money to burn.
So he actually leaves that lane. I'm guessing he realizes that there was not going to be nobody was going to contest that rune. So he wanted to make the most out of his presence on the map. He doesn't want to just sit there, and that's actually pretty smart. He helps push back his lane a little bit so that Lina can fight under her tower. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and travel immediately around the mid. He wants to try to get a gank. This is not going to be expected. The Death Prophet has no idea this is coming, and so all he's doing, though, he's not really ganking, he's just putting on pressure. He casts the Disruption, puts on a significant amount of pressure on this Death Prophet. The Baden's in lane, though, so that's not going to do too good. She's going to be able to regenerate a little bit, but that is going to put a decent pressure on her, get some damage on her, make her life a little more miserable, which I think is the importance here. So he's at 53 seconds, he hits this camp down here. He's trying to pull the camp. He's stacking and potentially pulling at the same time. An unsuccessful pull, but it will be stacked. And that should be able to provide some additional damage, or some additional gold and experience for him, should he level Shadow Poison early on and just cast the hell out of it on top of these creeps, stack up those stacks of damage, and then release it and kill the enemy, or kill the neutral creeps there. He still hasn't placed this ward. Maybe he's waiting to see what this lane's going to look like before he does that. He may not even put the ward in this lane. I mean, he is, at this point, all he is doing is just hitting these little treants. Oh, this is so annoying, because look at the Shadow Demon. He has 503 health, almost no health. These little treants do, I think it's like 18 or 19 damage per hit. So actually, well, let me hit them. Well, let me highlight them to find out. But they're actually a decent amount of damage with these little treants, and I think it goes up over time. But he's just trying to prevent, trying to kill these things. I think both A, because he's going to get gold out of it, B, because it forces the Nature's Prophet to micro these things, thus distracting the Nature's Prophet from last hits. You can only do so much in a game, even if you are a professional player. Okay, so he does go ahead and puts his level 2 points into Shadow Poison. He wants to be able to kill these treants a little faster. He's already out of regen, or I think he's out of regen here. Okay, he is out of regen. He doesn't have, well, I should say health regen. He has a clarity, but he is dangerous low on health. He could actually die here, as well as his teammate is really low in health. He's not doing so well in lane, and this is actually the reason why, one of the reasons I've actually had problems with Shadow Demon play. He's such low health, it's so difficult to figure out what to do early on to make an impact. You can't really dominate the lane because people can just dodge the Shadow Poison, which you can see is very slow. So this is interesting. He actually pulls the creeps down to this neutral camp to get the creeps to pull, and then he does a double pull. He actually goes to the neutrals. He uses his Shadow Poison as a pulling mechanism to pull the neutrals. He doesn't have to go all the way down to those neutrals. And he's using it as a damage mechanism. He's going to be able to do a significant amount of damage to all of these little creeps here. That was kind of a risky clarity. He almost got hit by the little tree end there. Oh, so it looks like the Enchantress was able to come up here, pull a couple of creeps, get some stuns, and do a pretty decent job of getting a gank on the Nature's Prophet.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
So he buys the TP scroll. He's going to need one, maybe to teleport in to disrupt. Okay, see, where is he going? He's going back to base. He's going to use this to get some health. And he didn't have any. He's going to die. He's just going to feed the Nature's Prophet. He doesn't want to do that. He buys another TP. He buys some wards. Being ward bitch. And I've covered this kind of support play before. Hard position 5 support. A lot of people don't want to play this because all they do, they're no fun items. They get boots, they get observer wards, and they go around and ward everything. And it's so annoying to play because you don't get to do what you really want to do. But Shadow Demon is not the best carry in the world. If you know how to play against a Shadow Demon, I guess it's pretty easily shut down. He's very weak. He does not have a lot of health. He can be a beast if he gets a significant amount of levels above the enemy, but you can see here he is only level 3 versus the other mid player, Death Prophet, level 6. So what's going to be powerful for him is this disruption, which he might cast here. Okay, so he's going to set up to lead a stun. Good setup. And that was a lot of damage. Lena had level 6. So all he really needed to do is cast this disruption. He didn't even need to put a soul catcher for the amplified damage to get that kill. So his role is to roam around, ward up, initially help out the carry in the lane by pulling camps and stacking camps and overall just harassing the Nature's Prophet. And then as he kind of progresses into the level 6 land with these enemies, his job is to help set up ganks. Now he's going to get a really nice gank here on the Ursa, which is very helpful. His team getting a gank on an Ursa is always very helpful. Scary bear. And all he does is basically set it up with the disruption. He's kind of like just a little OD running around Astral Imprisonment. And his other spells, will become more important later on as time goes on. But he hasn't really used his Shadow Poison isn't stacked camps in the jungle. He's not doing that right now, which you could use as a catch-up mechanism to gain a lot of levels and a lot of gold later on, because the Shadow Poison is going to cover a significant amount of area. Do a significant amount of damage if he gets 5 stacks. Maybe he's waiting for his level 3 before he does that.
Radiant structures are fortified.
He is staying down in lane. Actually, he decided to come back up to mid lane. Mid lane's being pushed in. He TP'd behind the tower. He doesn't want to get in front. He uses disruption on, I don't see who that was. I think it's the Death Prophet. Starts casting the Shadow Poison. And that damage adds up. But all he really did was disrupt, and that takes one player out of the game for just a few seconds. He used that on the Death Prophet there. It doesn't much matter. I believe her Exorcism was gone, and there's really no point in casting a disruption on a Death Prophet when the Exorcism is running, because just like Eul's Scepter, that's going to protect the Death Prophet during the duration of the ult, and thus allowing the ult to go off. Pasha is lucky. There's an Abad in that lane, because Pasha would be dead otherwise. So, meanwhile, the Shadow Demon picking up more wards, getting some observer wards, grabbed a smoke. Curious to know when he's going to use this. He is actually pinging the mid lane. He may want to go on this Death Prophet here, maybe while the rune is up, maybe capture the rune. Looks like no, he didn't have anybody in the area. Maybe he just wants to push the lane. He does, maybe he sensed the ward. Not really sure how he knew that was there. But he did de-ward, and he smokes. Doesn't have a lot of mana. He's going to only be able to cast a couple of abilities here. He won't be able to cast his ult and his disruption spell. So Ursa can definitely get off Ursa's ult, thus depriving the enemy, his team, of a significant amount of damage against the Ursa. This looks like a warding mission. So, I've seen this a number of times before. You have these supports go through, they smoke up to ward. They don't always use it as a gank, they don't always use it as a team fight, but they use their smokes. They're not just letting these smokes go to waste, which I see in a lot of pub games. You know, nobody uses the smokes. They either wait until it's, you know, way late in the game and it's like a desperate last minute move, and they try to smoke up the whole team and they get surprised and they get wiped, or maybe they do use it as a combat mechanism. But I think, you know, this is probably a good lesson for low level players, low MMR players, that it's okay to buy a smoke early on if you don't have good vision over the enemy. You want to be able to find a position, get an aggressive ward in there, be able to, you can use it as a gank as well if you have a couple teammates that are willing to go with you, maybe one teammate. And because of the way Shadow Demon works, because of the disruption, because of the Soul Catcher, you can do a huge amount of damage, especially if you just combine it with like a Lina or a Beastmaster. You're going to be able to kill one person probably pretty quickly.
Radiant's top tower has fallen.
So I think it's interesting that he decided to ward up, to sentry ward up the mid lane. I mean, I guess he used it as a counter to perhaps against, to protect his Weaver, if the Weaver were ever going to come mid lane. Okay, he is going to go ahead and TP bot lane. He sees the team fight starting. Beastmaster pops his ult. Lina blows up the Nature's Prophet. The demon, Shadow Demon, is in the house. He's waiting around the back of the lines behind the Weaver, perhaps waiting to counter-initiate. Disruption is a pretty good counter-initiation tool. Somebody pops in. Maybe a Pasha comes in. I don't think Pasha has a Blink Dagger yet. Pasha is taking a lot of damage. The Enchantress ult is really pushing him out of the lane. And now, looks like Shadow Demon takes a frontline role. As soon as the tide turns, as soon as enemies start running away, like a Disruptor, the Shadow Demon is pushing in, looking for that disruption if he can get one off. If he can get, and there's not a big range disruption, you can see here. He needs some kind of Force Staff or some kind of Blink Dagger to be able to do more of a kind of a catch roll, kind of a chase down and catch roll. But it's decent. He might be able to get somebody. He's 7 seconds left on his TP. He's not going to be able to get to mid lane. So the Enchantress try to get it out of the mid lane. So what's he doing? He's buying more wards. He's setting up for a Force Staff, which makes sense. Shadow Demon is so slow, so painfully slow. He was able to get Arcane Boots during that time. I did not watch that. He also got a Magic Wand. Both very important things if you're going to be casting a lot of Shadow Poison. He might, at this point, start going into the jungle, start farming a little bit. He did a little bit earlier, maybe when his teammates are not in a position to push. There's a smoke up by the tier 2 tower. There's not going to be any wards back here. It's for people to see, the enemy to see. Looks like this is going to be not just a ward mission, but also a gank mission. He's going to bring Alina with him. He's going to also have the Beastmaster. That's 3 ults that are going to be really nasty. Maybe even be able to kill their Ursa if they can find their Ursa farming. That's an aggressive ward. He wants to be able to see him when he's taking that ancient stack. They should be able to come in pretty quickly and take that out. He wants to see if there's any wards that's going to track the Weaver here. The Weaver immediately comes in, so he's protecting the Weaver with that ward. That seems to be the purpose of that ward. And that is a really smart thing to do for a support, is to make sure that the Weaver doesn't die early on, is able to get his levels, get his experience. Here comes the gank. Crystal Maiden, unfortunately, not going to be escaping that one. One of the slower heroes in the game, not going to be able to escape a gank attempt. So he places another aggressive ward. He wants to see what's happening in this jungle. It's actually not aggressive at this point. That tower is gone. He tells his team to go ahead and push this lane, draws a little line. He starts trying to farm, trying to stay out of vision. He wants to get a little, these are easy guys. He should be able to kill these guys, no problem. 3 stacks, gets him down to about 3rd health, blows the stacks. Does enough damage to kill them off.
Radiant's bottom
And they're going to take
tower is
Ursa.
under attack.
This is where the Soul Catcher is going to do a tremendous amount of work. His team's going to come in here. The enemy team's going to go ahead and push top towers. This is going to be a trade, but I may not use it. Surprised. The cooldown is only 13 seconds. Maybe it doesn't work on Roshan. Let's see why it wouldn't. Just saving his mana, I guess. Not really sure why. But again, the magic wand and the boots are very important. If you're spamming a lot of shadow poison, 40 mana for each one is, doesn't sound like a lot, but he has to cast 5 of those just to get enough stacks to do a decent amount of damage. He doesn't need 5 to do damage, but he really wants 5 because that's where the maximum efficiency is for the maximum amount of damage he's going to get. He's staying back here once again when the enemy is being aggressive, when that Death Prophet ult is out. He's staying behind. He doesn't want to get involved. There's both the Lina ult and the Beastmaster ult on the Nature's Prophet. The fight turns. He pushes in. There goes the ult on the Abaddon. So the ult is over. The Abaddon dies. That seemed like a rather short duration, Abaddon ult. One of the most annoying ults in the game, of course. In any pub I've played with, Abaddon seems to be the hero that ruins games for my team because for whatever reason we always attack the Abaddon first and attack him through result and regenerate all of his health. So this is where that aggressive ward is really helping. They ping out the Ursa on the Ancient stack. They know the Ursa's there. If they can get in range, if he had a 4-staff, he'd be able to get there a little bit faster. He might have been able to get that kill, but he's just out of range. He's not going to be able to pull it off. Maybe the Ursa comes back thinking it's safe. The Ursa's still around. They're going to wait and see. He wants to take a frontline role. He wants to see what's going on. He's a low-level hero. If he dies, it's not that big of a deal. He gets just a little bit of wealth. He's going to ward really aggressively here. Very aggressive ward. He wants to be able to see what's going on behind that tower. Wants to be able to come back and flank. That's actually a 2-tower ward right there. He's going to be able to... That's a fantastic ward. That gives him vision over both the middle tier 2 tower and the top tier 2 tower. The enemy team is probably not going to realize that he was that far in to be able to ward. So they are seeing every little bit of vision that the enemy has. 4 players sitting over there. They're going to back off. Power Rangers are going to back off, go ahead and farm a little bit, while the enemy team is stacked as 5. And this is how you punish a team for running around as 4. You have vision over them, you know where they are, you're not worried about them, because there's no way they're going to be able to gank you. You're going to be able to easily escape because you have information where they are, and you just go farm. You split up, you farm, your team gets a huge amount of money out of it, huge amount of experience out of that amount of time, and the enemy's stuck running around as 4 or 5 people at once. Only the carries can even farm. Okay, now, I said that they had vision and they were not going to worry about it, but maybe they smoked up. I did not see them move out. The J4 draws a line across the map. I'm guessing what that means is he wants everybody to push the wave across the river. He doesn't want any creep waves to be on their side. Maybe he's getting ready to smoke. That makes sense. If you're smoke, it's pretty obvious. If your creep wave is on your side and you're not pushing the lane, why aren't you? Well, that's probably because you're smoked. Here comes the smoke. They're going to wait for a Beastmaster to respawn. He's going to have his Ring of Regen if he buys it. I'm guessing he's going to save his money a little bit. He might buy that here. So here comes the smoke. The Lina is actually in lane. The Lina is going to be the bait. And they're going to flank around. Lina's going to need to play defensively while they flank around here to the bottom. All they need is a Beastmaster ult, get a disruption. Should be able to blow somebody up here if they find anybody. And here's the Ursa. Perfect target. Exactly who they wanted to kill. Unfortunately, the Enchantress is the frontliner. Reveals the smoke. Reveals herself. The smoke is popped. Ursa realizes it and backs away. Another very aggressive ward. I imagine these wards are going to be very helpful. They now have a picture of the entire back half of what's going on with the enemy. They're very protected. They can hit any one of these towers without fear. And he did it with just 2 wards. It's really efficient. He's helping to push this wave a little bit. He's not wasting too much mana. He had a little bit to spend because he did have his boots up, so he can use that mana when his boots are up. But he does need to save it. I mean, he's a decent amount of mana to be able to cast all of his abilities. 200 for Demonic Purge, 120 for Disruption. He's got 50 for the Soul Catcher. That right there is already... Okay, so... Meanwhile, Ursa jumps in. They don't have wards in this particular area. He actually gets the hell out. He wants to leave. Leaves Alina to her death. I guess he canceled his TP there. Not very smart. It was a Disruption on the Ursa. I think there's a Soul Catcher on the Ursa at this time. He's running the heck away. He wants to get out of here. He doesn't have a TP. The enemy is going to find out where he is and see if he can juke himself away. He might be able to survive this. He is so painfully slow, though. He does not yet have enough for Force Staff. He definitely does for Ring of Regen. And he escapes narrowly. Not lucky son of a gun. Hiding in the woods. Wants to see if he can get a stay out of vision, doesn't want to get killed, but also see if maybe he can get a gank on whoever that Yellow Nature's Prophet coming up there. There were a lot of tree ants, and maybe he's trying to avoid getting surrounded by tree ants. They are going to do a decent amount of damage to him. So he has a TP on the courier. He'll probably grab that as soon as somebody else brings the courier out in the area. There must be an illusion Death Prophet up here by the tower, just getting vision. He's coming over. This team is converging. They are enveloping the enemy. Polarity here in the jungle. Goes ahead, puts on Disruption on the Crystal Maiden. It's going to do a decent amount of damage. Oh, yeah. She actually starts to ult, but then somebody Yules, I think it's probably Lena that Yules her. Gets her ult out of the game, stops that, and because of the Disruption, he didn't even cast Soul Catcher, so the amplify damage is not there. She was pretty lightweight. She did not need the Soul Catcher. That's really an Ursa item, I think. Maybe in a bad, maybe a Death Prophet item. Death Prophet can get pretty tanky. It's nice to be able to do a significant amount of damage to blow up that Death Prophet. When you have heroes like Ursa and Death Prophet, a Shadow Demon's pretty good because, you know, if you just disrupt and amplify damage on that Ursa, and as soon as the Ursa puts on his ultimate to prevent a lot of damage, it gets 80% damage, all the Shadow Demon has to do is purge. And that Ursa's taking 50% more damage from all the team. He will blow up. That Abaddon little, I forget what it's called. The Abaddon aphotic shield is not going to do anything to stop that. It's only going to prevent 200 damage. Yeah, not going to stop that.
Has been killed.
Is backline war doing work? We're able to get a kill again on the Crystal Maiden. That poor Crystal Maiden dying over and over again. So he actually disrupts the Weaver, and I've seen this before. That's a offensive defensive disruption, if that makes sense. He does it to boost the damage output of the Weaver and protect the Weaver. If somebody were to go on the Weaver, they wouldn't necessarily know which one was which. There was 2 illusions there, and he's going to do additional damage to the tower. And he does it to the right person. You don't just do that to anybody. You do it to the hero that has the most right-click damage. In this case, the Weaver not only has the most right-click damage, but also has the most right-clicks. He's going to cast 2 of his little Gemini attacks. He's going to cast 2 little attacks every time that Gemini attack is up. He's already doing 143 damage, plus 13 by 150 or 60 damage. Nobody else is close to that, I don't believe. At least not hitting a tower. Nobody else is close to that. Beastmaster's only at 96. But definitely the target there because it both protects the Weaver and it does damage to the tower. Meanwhile, he's sitting back and farming. They have really good vision of the enemy right now. They know that the enemy is moving into the woods, their own woods. They wanted to gank, they could. He might be able to pull out a smoke and do that right now. Curious to know why he's going back. That may be the purpose when he just wants to regenerate. But he's not farming. He's only doing that a little bit, only when he has a little bit of a chance. He picks up his Force Staff, and he picks up a TP, or picks up some, yeah, there's the smoke. Picks up the wards, picks up the Force Staff, has the smoke. He knows where the enemy is, but the enemy is pushing. He needs to stay back because the Death Prophet ult is going to tear Manuin if he
Dire's
decides to go in there.
structures are fortified.
Cast Shadow Poison from afar, tries to help kill that creep wave. They are going to be able to get a nice deny, hopefully, on this tower. Enchantress did get a
Dire's
deny
bottom
off. That
tower
was
has been denied.
good job there, helping stop that creep wave. Just a little bit of damage to help do that. A little bit of Shadow Poison AoE damage. Now this is the point they might smoke up. See if they can get in the jungle. Although it appears the enemy team is running away, so maybe not the best time to smoke up. They are going to go do Roshan instead. The enemy team is running away, and you have the vision that they do. Although they did lose the ward between the top tier 2 and mid tier 2 towers. Still, they're going to go ahead and take the Roshan. I still think it's interesting that he doesn't use Soul Catcher on Roshan. I guess maybe it doesn't work on Roshan. Maybe he just doesn't need it. Wants to save his mana. Not really sure. I'll have to look that one up. But he's team captain. He's got many more games than I have. He probably knows what's best here. Clearly knows how to play the Shadow Demon well. He knows who to prioritize. So that's interesting. He wards there. I'm not sure that gave him any vision at all. Okay, he got a nice gank here on Pasha. That's going to be a terrific fight. Actually, I think Pasha might have a... No, somehow he healed through that. I'm not really sure how he did that. Actually, go back and watch that again. So he's searching through the jungle, and then the lean is able to get a nice stun and an ult. All he does is cast the Amplify damage, and you can see he needs it. He needs the Amplify damage. He might have not been able to kill the Ursa were it not for the Amplify damage. He did also Demonic Purge, and we'll actually slow that down and go back one more time. Watch in slow motion how he dealt with this Ursa, because this is ultimately why the Shadow Demon was picked in this game. Okay, so then he gets a really nice stun off, surprises Pasha, nukes Pasha. First thing that J4 does is cast the ult to purge Pasha. I guess Pasha had the Enrage on. We'll watch it from Pasha's perspective so you can see what that feels like for Pasha.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
He does not have vision. Not a very smart idea to go running up on this hill. Note to self, don't do that in the future. He actually does not have Enrage on. So when he gets disrupted, purged, here's the question. So this was actually a mistake by J4. J4 should have waited until he actually thought Pasha was enraged already, or that he had already cast it somehow. And so the purge is on him. It's at this point just a slow. It did not purge off the enrage. So he's taking 80% less damage, multiplying the Fury Swipe's damage. That's really, he would have died a lot faster had J4 properly waited until the enrage was cast. He did not, and so this Ursa actually lives a lot longer than he should. There's a chance that they would have been able to. The Nature's Prophet, DK Phobos is teleporting in. You've got the Crystal Maiden over here, probably with her ult ready to go. Yep, sure enough. This was a very dangerous situation. He really, he could have disrupted. He didn't want to disrupt because he wanted to kill the darn thing. And if you disrupt, then you're just going to save him potentially while his allies come in. He did successfully cast the Amplify damage, so the Ursa is taking 30% Amplify damage. I don't know how that works. If the Amplify is after the 80% reduction from the Enrage or what. But he is both, has damage taken increased by 30%, and the damage is then reduced by 80%. So I don't know if it's multiplied 30 and then subtracted 30%, probably doesn't matter because it's all percentages. Although I was curious, other games don't work that way when it comes to percentages. They don't actually work mathematically. Like World of Warcraft, 50% run and speed increased actually increases your percentage speed, by 50. So if you're 20, you go to 70. In this particular case, I don't know if that's how it works, or if you're 20, 50% increase over that is 30. Like the mathematics should work. So anyway, this is just a good example of where he got a little antsy there. I think that was a mistake on his part. He probably shouldn't have cast it that way. And Pasha gets a little bit of a heal off. Shadow Poison, he tries to kill. He pops the Shadow Poison, tries to get a little extra damage there. Almost does it. Luckily, they're able to get the Ursa because the Weaver is in there and doing a decent amount of damage. He's not able to get a Disruption off. His Disruption was cast. I don't know where he cast Disruption. Okay, so he sees... Okay, so yeah, he sees the Nature's Prophet coming in, and he disrupts the Nature's Prophet. That's a smart move. That makes it a 3v2 at that point, rather than a 3v3. And now the DK Focus is running away, taking a huge amount of damage from the Weaver. Lena was going to be able to kill, but unfortunately he got... Lena got fueled. That's a good fight. They got an Ursa, they didn't lose anybody. And the Shadow Demon's cooldowns are almost done again. Purge is almost done again, and you think about it, that Purge is going to be before the Ursa's even alive. If they can get a kill on the Ursa using the Demonic Purge, which, by the way, is really good even if it doesn't get rid of the Enrage, because it slows the Ursa, and the Ursa can't run around and can't go hit people. So at the very least, it's used defensively. That may have been the intent. Maybe he thought, well, the Enrage is up. I'm not going to wait for Ursa to run into my friend and have Ursa start blowing up my friend before I cast the slow. So he goes ahead and casts it preemptively, hoping that maybe the Enrage was already up. So maybe that's just the calculation. We'll see if he does it again. He goes up against this Ursa, and he does the exact same thing. He doesn't wait for the Enrage. And Ursa looks enraged. There's a visual associated with the Enrage. You should be able to see that. So either that was a lucky benefit he got out of casting the Demonic Purge without the Ursa being enraged, or that's just a calculation. We're going to Demonic Purge the Ursa to at least slow him down, cast the Amplify damage, and that's going to be a decent counter, even if we don't get rid of the Enrage. So the ward's doing work. Lots of wards in this area. Once again, disrupts the Weaver. Tries to see... Actually, that's no wards in that area. Those are actually two Hawks giving vision, so that's really nice, Beastmaster. Have a nice Beastmaster. Beastmaster is nice to have in the game. You don't always have to have wards everywhere. You can go in and be aggressive. Use your other wards defensively if need be. There's currently only one ward actually on the map. Beastmaster ults, maybe not the best ult in the world. The enemy team does run away. At least it scares the team so that his team can then blow up the barracks. Probably going to give up the Enchantress, though she survives. Untouchable's a nasty, nasty passive. Boots laying around, or something laying around on the ground. Not sure what that was all about. Curious to see how the Shadow Demon deals with this little counter push. Looks like he just runs, just walks away. Probably won't even force it. Gonna go jungle maybe a little bit. Cast some Shadow Poison as he runs in. May not. No, he actually just thinks it's worth it. Go ahead. Shadow Poison up this Centaur.
Regeneration.
Really needed 3 or 4 on that Centaur to get the kill. He does have max Shadow Poison at this point. So every stack of damage does 65. And it's that times 16, so that's a lot of damage. He gets 5 stacks. He goes ahead and picks up the Medallion of Courage next. So, Medallion of Courage, it's a little item, gives you 7 armor. That's not going to be for him. He has not armor for him. That is the mana regeneration's decent, but it's really for the ability to get rid of the armor on an enemy, and that's to help out with the Weaver, who's already has a Desolator, it looks like, and the right clicks of all his teammates. I'm guessing the Ursa probably has a decent item. I'm not sure what kind of armor he has yet. He doesn't really have That's an interesting picture there for the Ursa. That's a Crystal Maiden picture on an Ursa. My game client must be a little messed up at the moment. But they're just going to do a tremendous amount of damage to this Ursa. They are really going to blow him up. Nature's Prophet, too. If you got the Medallion of Courage in addition to all the other damage. He is not participating in that team fight. He's not TPing in. He does not want to. He wants to go ahead and push for this barracks. Smart move. He actually disrupts an illusion to create more illusions for the Weaver rather than disrupting the Weaver. That's clever. I never actually thought about doing that. It has the same effect, but it doesn't give the enemy time to do something to your Weaver during the disruption. It's a safer disruption on an ally. Not bad, doubling the illusions. The illusions do a little less damage. They only do 75% damage. They take a little extra damage, but that's not bad. He continues with his Observer Ward. Buying. Supporting like a champ. He's waiting for that Talisman Evasion so he can get the crest. And be able to really help out one of his teammates. Give some evasion to probably the Weaver. This is all about supporting his Weaver. The Weaver can only build so many items at once. Only has so much money and needs to be building into damage. And it's really nice to have a teammate like a Shadow Demon or some position 5 support that's going to be able to get you some evasion, to get you out of the fights, to avoid damage, so that the Weaver can do the Weaver job and start doing a tremendous amount of damage with the Gemini attack. So they have pushed the bottom lane past the river, well past the river. It's actually in the enemy jungle. They know that there's an enemy down there. Then there's an enemy up top. The lane up top, though, is getting pushed in by the Death Prophet. And you can see the Ursa's up there as well. So they are actually moving to gank bottom while the bottom is still on his way back. Very smart move. They went ahead and killed the Nature's Prophet. It's going to stop some of the split push. They are going to be able to push down mid and bot right now, thus keeping Polarity in the base. Polarity's not going to be able to continue pushing that top tower. That was really good. They didn't, you see a lot of these teams, they just TP up there and leave the push in the bottom lane, or don't get the gank. Well, you could do that, and you can play defensively, or you can play really offensively, and that's going to allow you to not only protect your top tower, but also be able to hit the gank and kill this tower and maybe the racks. So the Siege Engine right now is very interesting. The Siege Engine is basically disruption onto a Weaver. The Weaver's not even in there. The Weaver stays out of harm's way, the most defensive position possible. Just disrupt the Weaver, send the Weaver illusions in, and the Weaver is going to chip away at this tower. Look at that. I also have the Enchantress, who's going to do a decent amount of damage. You got the Lina, who's going to do a decent amount of damage from range. And there's got the counter initiation tool with the disruption. He's back up right now. Potentially a little bit dangerous. He didn't have that up immediately. They're going to clear the wave, and they're going to back out. They're going to go back and see if they can get a Roshan. And then what they can do is they can put that on the Weaver. They can get that Weaver directly into harm's way, put some most damage on the tower they can possibly do. But it's not bad. Illusion damage is 75%, but it's multiplied by 2. You have 2 illusions. So it's 75% of the damage times 2. It's actually 150% of the damage overall. So it's just like having a Weaver up there on the tower, chipping away at it, but with no risk whatsoever. They're just illusions. And currently the Weaver is doing 200 plus damage. That's about 75 that times that. It's 150% of that damage. We'll be doing 300 damage. Those illusions will do 300 damage. So the enemy team has to clear those illusions. And it's a Gemini attack, so that's 300 damage times 2. Actually, it's not times 2. It's times, it is times 2 every 3 seconds. So the enemy team really has to kill those illusions quickly. And Ursa can do that, but the rest of the team does not have a really good wave clip. There is the Crystal Maiden's going to go ahead and cast a Frostbite, try to basically stun up that Weaver. But Weaver also has Manta. And 28%, not nearly as much damage on the Manta style, but how do you tell the difference? Now he's going to get killed here. And that was a really dumb move. Disruption was not available, not in the area. So they popped. Oh wow, he almost killed the Death Prophet. That Abaddon died very quickly, and now they're going to be able to push his tower. They were able to get a Nature's Prophet somehow out of that. And there is no way they're going to have to buy back. Ursa's going to pop in, but look at the damage even from these illusions. Disruption is ready in 5 seconds. Ursa pops in. Doesn't matter. Ursa's going to die really fast.
Come get healed.
You got a crest. You've got the Weaver damage. You've got the ults. Here comes the disruption on the Weaver. Weaver illusions are going to go in, and they're going to hit the racks. Ursa does a pretty good job of wiping them up, and the Crystal Maiden does a pretty good job of keeping them in place without having them do any damage. But they're going to keep doing this. This is the slow siege. The creep waves in the top are pretty close. They might have to go up there. I think the Weaver is actually moving to mid lane, try to do a little bit of damage if you can. This is what they're doing. They're using the illusions bot lane to do damage to the towers, while the Weaver then goes up north. Potentially goes up north. Although here's the blink in on the Weaver by the Ursa. Here's a TP in on the back lines from the Nature's Prophet. Looks like the looks like J4 disrupts somebody. Don't know who that was. He gets the hell out of dodge. It gives DK Phobos. DK Phobos getting wiped up by this Weaver, and as well as the Abaddon. The Enchantress does die, but here comes the damage. Disruption. A little bit of poison damage, and that's good game. We watched that last fight. It's a little bit extended. The Weaver's there. They catch the Weaver. Weaver immediately becomes visible. The Ursa pops in, takes the opportunity to try to kill the Weaver because the Weaver was visible after casting the little roach guy. I can't remember the name is. Swarm. So Shadow Demon actually disrupts somebody, and I'm guessing it's the Ursa, or not disrupts, purges the Ursa. Yeah, so the Ursa's Enrage is actually on cooldown, so he didn't purge him, he actually purged DK Phobos. Yeah. So DK Phobos, that's a decent thing to do. DK Phobos is going to do probably the second most damage on this team, at least in terms of right click, and his ability to get in range if he's running away is decent. Or his ability to get in range is severely limited if he's purged. He can't run very quickly. Doesn't have any mechanism to get out of that. He does have phase boost. That's not going to matter. He's going to get slowed down significantly. He already used his TP in on the back lines. He's not going to be able to get out of that. So Shadow Demon goes ahead and purges someone. Okay, so he purges the Ursa, takes the Ursa out of the fight. J4 is running away. Meanwhile, the Weaver is tearing up the... Actually, I think the Weaver ends up coming in the backlines here and killing DK Phobos.
Has fallen.
And then the Abaddon falls very, very quickly after that. Yeah, the Lina gets a nice stun on DK Phobos. Weaver and Lina clean up the Abaddon. The ultimate on the Death Prophet is still going on, but they're going to be able to kill her very quickly. There's the disruption. Yeah, there's an ultimate going on, but you're going to be able to get the illusion damage. You're going to be able to get the Lina stun on target. Lina ult. Look at the amount of damage just blowing up the Death Prophet. And that's game. There's no way they can stop this push after that, even with an Ursa still sitting up. So, you know, I think what's interesting about this game is, you know, largely what, you know, people, I see these kind of plays about, you know, the badass Shadow Demon play, you know, hey, totally own the lane, he's like 22-0, whatever it is. That's not what happened in this game. The Shadow Demon played board bitch, and mostly what he was doing was just kind of making the fights, instead of a 3v3, you know, against, I guess a 3v3 would be a 3v2. His team up 1. He would sit back. He would protect his team with the disruption. He would ensure that his team um, was out of harm's way as much as possible with the wards. He did some really good job warding. He early on helped prevent or helped his win his lane a little bit, but at least by pulling it, by stacking it. He couldn't do much. He just kind of kept killing the little treants. That wasn't the best thing in the world, but at least he was able to kill them off, get a little bit of prevent them from interrupting the creep, the neutral camps, getting those farm from the neutral camps. So, nothing crazy in this game. I think more than anything, this was an example of a Shadow Demon that was just going to counter the Ursa. You can use the Purge on anybody. You can slow anybody down. But the ability to Purge in a Rage is amazing. Very, very powerful. The ability to disrupt defensively or offensively, very, very powerful. And I think toward the end there, really just putting a disruption on the Weaver with the Geminate attack is... I think the enemy team realized just how powerful that was going to be as a siege engine late game. As I just kind of went through and did the math, that's gonna kill you eventually. You have to do something against that. And so you saw that last fight was a desperation move. The Ursa jumped in on the Weaver as soon as the Ursa had an opportunity, but it wasn't going to be enough. You had all of the abilities in the Shadow Demon to counter initiate. The Weaver is very tough to kill. Tons of damage. You had the Solar Crest on the Weaver by the Shadow Demon. I'm sure he cast that at some point. And by the way, the Shadow Demon protected that Weaver throughout the game. Not only did he use the Weaver as a siege engine late in the game, but he helped get the Weaver to that point. He stood in the lane. He helped harass the treants. He helped stack and pull. He provided observer wards around towers. I'm sorry, sentry wards around towers to make sure that if somebody had a ward in that area, they weren't going to be able to use that against the Weaver. That's, I think, that's a very sacrificial thing, right? Go spend 200 gold and get 2 sentry wards and just use it to help the Weaver get in the lane and push towers. Very, very smart move for the team. Helped the Weaver get pretty fat pretty fast. I don't know if that Weaver died hardly at all during that game. So anyway, this has been another cast, a scrub cast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you see how Shadow Demon works. Nothing crazy. Once again, we're not seeing these professional players doing anything nuts. I'll probably start casting some heroes in the next few episodes, like Wind Ranger and OD and things like that. But they're a little overdone. I think most people know how to play them. But they are a little more skill heroes. Pudge hooks. You've always seen the Pudge hooks. Nobody needs to see more Pudge hooks to know how Pudge works. Same thing with Rubik. Everybody knows that Rubik steals really important ultimates and then uses the ultimates against the enemy team. It's not that hard of a concept to figure that out. But you look at a hero like Shadow Demon and you see that he's picked in this situation. He's a last pick. He's a surprise last pick. He's clearly a counter to the Ursa. The question is, how do you play it? Because he's not played very well. He is extremely weak in lane. He's extremely weak throughout the game. He does not. He farms well if he's got lots of points in Shadow Poison and lots of mana regen. You see, he farms okay if he has stacks, but he didn't stack in this game. He played it as a hard position 5 support, mostly to support the Weaver. So, good luck to everybody. Have fun, and hope to see you next time on the Scrub.